In the early morning hours, at just the right spot, there are few places in Los Angeles that can look as tranquil and inviting as MacArthur Park, located just west of LA's downtown. For much of its 130-year history, the park has been an urban oasis for residents of the surrounding Westlake neighborhood and the wider city, a place where people can come to exercise and play, feed the birds, and even do a little urban fishing in its big lake that's stocked with carp. But MacArthur Park has a darker side. It's also a pit of misery and desperation for people crushed by homelessness, mental illness, and worst of all, drug addiction. So much drug addiction.
Oh, okay.
What is that, may I ask?
Fentanyl.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Fentanyl, it's the synthetic opioid that can be 50 times more powerful than heroin, and it might as well be an unofficial symbol of MacArthur Park. Scenes of fentanyl abuse are everywhere here, especially on the park's eastern edge along Alvarado Street. The addicts say they're here because this is where the fentanyl is, dirt cheap and in plentiful supply.
Can I ask, did you do fentanyl this morning, or will you?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
I do daily.
You do daily?
Yeah, I'm addicted.
You're addicted?
Yeah.
And evidence of the damage fentanyl causes to bodies and minds is also everywhere in MacArthur Park, from people passed out or stumbling on the pavement to the distinctive hunch stance fentanyl users have as they lose muscular control. The human devastation also spills out into the surrounding neighborhood. Drug casualties make the LA fire station closest to MacArthur Park, Station 11, one of the busiest in the U.S., with its personnel responding to hundreds of drug-related calls a year in and around the park. And where's the police in all of this? Well, the LAPD does patrol MacArthur Park, and you'll see officers cracking down on things like illegal camping and loitering. But MacArthur Park's addicts say that when it comes to hard narcotics use, the cops seem to have a hands-off, drive-by policy.
When I first came here and I was seeing people standing on the corner smoking meth and cops are sitting at a red light, they waved them and stuff, like that blew my mind, dude. I couldn't
Oh, the
believe
cops
it.
just sort of acknowledging it and moving on.
And even now, if they drive up the street and they see you smoking dope, they'll just honk their horn and say, put it away. Because I know they got bigger and better things to do, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to go to jail. But because of that, it's gotten so laxed that it's doing dope in public is the same as drinking a Pepsi.
Meanwhile, the cottage industry centered around the fentanyl trade has dug its claws into the area, turning the MacArthur Park neighborhood into an open-air drug emporium that involves everyone from local gang members to street vendors near the park.
What makes more sales than any other fucking things in the market, in the industry? Drugs. Okay? In an hour, a dealer would make about $2,000 in anything that you sells here, or any sale that sells, right? So the economy is driven by drugs, fueled by drugs, and the money that's going through here.
Residents of the area, many of whom are poor immigrants from Mexico and Central America with no political clout, just have to try to coexist with MacArthur Park's drug scene. But it's not easy.
Yo creo que ese es el miedo más que nada, porque no tenemos seguridad ya en esta comunidad.
Savina, along with her friends, has lived in the area since the early 1990s and says conditions, although never perfect, have clearly gotten much worse.
Ese es el problema, ha cambiado mucho porque ya no podemos andar segura. Yo que he caminado, ese es el peligro, que a uno se arriesga a uno andar caminando, ya no puede uno andar con los niños en los juegos porque se juntan ellos por ahí.
And many of MacArthur Park's destitute and drug addicted say they also understand how bad things are in this place.
It's a park, dog, but it's not somewhere where you can absent-mindedly fucking, excuse my language, relax. There's not a place to relax and chill, you know?
A drug addict would be happy that things would be so accessible and things would be, like, everything's so open, but it's kind of disgusting. Like, it really is. It reminds me of a third world country, honestly.
And I got to say that, though, I got to point out, you say that as you're getting high.
Yeah, as I'm getting high, absolutely.
One of the loudest critics of MacArthur Park's condition is the owner of Langer's Delicatessen, a legendary LA restaurant right across the street from the park. 78-year-old Norm Langer, whose parents founded the deli, says if things don't change around the park, he'll be forced to take drastic action.
I'm going to wind up closing.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Come on.
I don't want to deal with it. I'm tired of pushing the cart uphill. I don't need to come down here every day and fight this battle.
But after months of negative stories in the media, maybe things might change for MacArthur Park.
And so thank you for joining us today as we roll out several new initiatives that will support the health, safety, and accessibility of MacArthur Park.
On a patch of the park that was spruced up for a press event, Oasis Hernandez, the LA City Council member who represents the neighborhood, recently announced a series of programs centered on improving the park, with an emphasis on social service and violence prevention outreach, as well as improved cleanup efforts. But more controversially, Hernandez also backs a $2.5 million study that's looking at closing the stretch of Wilshire Boulevard that cuts through MacArthur Park so that both sides of the park could be connected. Many locals say that would cause a traffic nightmare while doing little to improve the area. Hernandez, a political progressive, also is reluctant to support more aggressive policing in the park by the LAPD. We talked about that when I interviewed the council member at City Hall for Public Radio.
My goal is that they would do their job and that they would do it with the urgency that they believe is what they need to. But I would hope that it doesn't look like a recreation of the war on drugs, because we've lived it. And all that's done is fill our prisons and jails. It hasn't made us any safer. Because if it had, we wouldn't be here in this situation. We have 83 overdose deaths in one zip code. What we're doing right now is not working. And everybody that's a part of this spectrum of responses in this neighborhood really needs to reassess how they're doing their work to make a long-lasting impact, instead of just putting a million Band-Aids on an arterial bleed.
Looking ahead, MacArthur Park will still look serene in the early mornings, but will the full light of day reveal lasting and positive improvements, or more continuing decay, suffering, and addiction? I'm Saul Gonzalez.